Have you ever stopped to wonder why, even when you're buying the best feed on the market, your nesting boxes stay empty? You look at your hens, they seem healthy, they're moving around, eating, acting normal, but the egg bucket just doesn't fill up. And you start asking yourself, is the breed the problem? Is the cold weather shutting them down? Do I need to spend a fortune on industrial supplements just to get a decent dozen? You're not alone in this. I've heard it from people all over. Backyard keepers with 3 hens in a small garden, and small farmers running 200 or 300 birds. Frustrated people who are doing everything right by modern standards and still walking away from the coop empty-handed, day after day. They've tried switching brands. They've added oyster shell. They've bought lighting systems to simulate longer days. They've spent money they didn't have on probiotics and layer boosters and all kinds of products that promised results, and still, nothing changes in any meaningful way. The worst part isn't even the empty bucket. The worst part is that nagging feeling that you're missing something obvious, that somewhere someone knows the answer and you just haven't found it yet. Well, today you're going to find it, because the answer exists. It's just not in any modern feed catalog. Here's what I want to tell you today. There is a way of feeding chickens that American homesteaders used, that farmers in the 1920s passed down to their sons and daughters like a family trade secret. It wasn't complicated. It didn't require expensive equipment. It didn't demand any special training. But somewhere along the line, the modern keeper forgot all about it. We traded living knowledge for convenience, swapped proven tradition for plastic bags full of processed pellets and chemical additives, and now we're scratching our heads wondering why production is down and the birds seem sluggish and uninspired. The old-timers didn't have a feed store on every corner. They didn't have pelleted layer feed with a colorful label and a guaranteed percentage breakdown printed on the side. What they had was observation. They watched their birds for decades. They noticed what made hens produce through winter and what made them go quiet. They noticed what kept the flock vigorous and what dulled them. And they figured out a system, a real, repeatable biological system, that worked so consistently it became standard practice on farms from Vermont to the Carolinas. Then the industrial feed era arrived and that system got buried. The answer was buried in the past this whole time, and today we're digging it back up. Before we go any further, if you want to bring back the old ways of raising chickens, the kind of poultry keeping that was simple, rooted, and genuinely effective, go ahead and subscribe right now. You're watching The Old Poultryman, and this channel exists for the keepers who want to do things the right way. Hit that bell so you don't miss what's coming, because we have a lot more of this kind of knowledge to share. Now, I want to be straight with you about something that might sting a little. The reason your hens aren't producing the way you expect has nothing to do with the breed. It's not the weather's fault. It's not bad luck or a bad year. The real issue, the root cause, is how you're presenting the feed. The digestive system of a chicken today is biologically identical to what it was 100 years ago. The chicken hasn't changed. Her gut, her hormones, her instincts, her biological triggers, all of that is the same as it was in 1920 and 1880 and 1840. But the food you're giving her, it feels wrong to her body. It's too dry, too processed, too far removed from anything that ever existed in nature before the 20th century. Her biology is listening for a signal that says abundance is here, conditions are favorable, the season is right, it's time to produce. And the dry, uniform, crunchy pellet you're dropping in the feeder just isn't sending that message. It's calories. It's not food, not in the way her instincts recognize food. So here's the technique, the one from 1920, the one that made winter irrelevant to a production, that kept the nesting boxes full, even when snow was on the ground and the temperatures were well below freezing. It comes down to two things: fermented feed and sprouted grain, Neither one cost you anything extra beyond what you're already spending. What they cost is a little time and intention, and once you've built the routine, it takes about 10 minutes a day. Let's start with fermented feed, because this is the foundation of everything. Back in the 20s, farmers weren't throwing dry corn on the ground and calling it a day. They were working with the grain first, transforming it before it ever reached the birds. They'd take their grain mix, corn, wheat, oats, rye, whatever combination they had on hand from the season's harvest, and they'd soak it in water in a kettle or a crock, a clay pot, a wooden barrel, or whatever vessel was available. Not for a few hours, for days. And they weren't doing this by accident or out of laziness. They were doing it because they had seen with their own eyes what happened to hens that ate that soaked, fermented grain versus hens that ate it dry. What happens during fermentation is that the naturally occurring bacteria present on the surface of any whole grain begin to multiply rapidly once moisture is introduced. Specifically, lactic acid bacteria, the same organisms responsible for sourdough bread, yogurt, sauerkraut, and kimchi, begin colonizing the grain and breaking it down. They work on the outer hull. They begin to unlock nutrients that were chemically bound inside the seed in forms the chicken's gut simply couldn't access before. Phytic acid, which acts as an anti-nutrient and actually blocks the absorption of minerals like zinc, iron, and calcium, gets systematically broken down. During fermentation, B vitamins, particularly B12 and folate, multiply significantly. The protein in the grain becomes more bioavailable. Digestibility as a whole increases so dramatically that some studies have shown chickens eating fermented feed absorb up to twice the nutrition from the same quantity of grain compared to the dry version. Read that again. Twice the nutrition from the same amount of feed. To start your ferment, you need a container, a wide-mouthed glass jar, a food-grade plastic bucket, a ceramic crock, your grain, and water. Cover the grain completely with clean water. If your tap water is heavily chlorinated, let it sit out for a few hours first, or use well water, because chlorine can slow or inhibit the bacterial activity you're trying to encourage. Loosely cover the container with a cloth or a lid, set slightly ajar. The fermentation process produces carbon dioxide, and the container needs to breathe. Within about 24 hours in warm weather, you'll start to see small bubbles rising through the grain. That's the bacteria working. The grain will start to swell as it absorbs water. By day 2, you may notice a slightly sour smell starting to develop. By day 3, the smell will be more pronounced, something between sourdough starter and mildly fermented vegetable, and the mixture will have a thick, porridge-like consistency with an active, bubbly surface. That smell is not spoilage, that smell is success. That's exactly what you want. When you're ready to feed, scoop out the day's portion while the mixture is still wet and dense. Feed it in that state, right out of the crock. You don't dry it, you don't rinse it, you don't cook it, you feed it wet. And what you'll observe in the first feeding is something that will stick with you. The hens respond differently, not slightly differently, noticeably, immediately differently. They eat more slowly and deliberately. They clean the feeder completely with almost no waste. And because the nutritional density is so much higher per mouthful, they actually consume less total volume to feel satisfied. Your feed bill has a good chance of going down while production goes up. After you scoop out the day's portion, add fresh grain and water back into the crock to replace what you removed, the living bacterial culture you've built stays active and doesn't need to be restarted. Within a week to 10 days, the ferment reaches what you might call full maturity. The culture is established, the pH has stabilized, and the feed it produces is at its most potent. Old-timers would keep the same ferment going for months, sometimes years, perpetually feeding it fresh grain and drawing from it daily. Some families treated that crock the way a baker treats a sourdough starter. It was something you maintained and protected, not something you threw out and remade. Now the second element of the technique, sprouted grain. Alongside your ferment, you keep a small sprouting operation running. This is almost embarrassingly simple, and once you've done it a few times, it takes almost no thought. Take a handful of whole grain. Wheat berries are ideal, but whole oats, barley, or sunflower seeds also work well. And soak them in water overnight, about 8 to 12 hours. Then drain the water completely. Spread the grain in a shallow tray, a wide jar with a mesh lid, or a colander with small holes. Rinse the grain twice a day with fresh water and drain it thoroughly each time. Keep the sprouting vessel somewhere with decent airflow and out of direct sun. Within 2 to 3 days, you'll see small white root tips emerging from each grain. By day 4 or 5, those roots will be an inch or more long, and if you've used wheat or barley, you may have a green grass mat beginning to form on top. That entire mass, root, seed, and shoot, goes into the feeder the moment your hens encounter a tray of fresh sprouts for the first time. You will understand why this technique was standard practice for 100 years. The bird that pecks half-heartedly or a short pile of dry crumble goes after that sprouted tray with everything she has. This is not about hunger. This is recognition. Sprouted grain looks, smells, feels, and tastes like something she was built by millions of years of biological history to find on the ground in early spring, the season when every laying hen's body is naturally calibrated to its highest production. She's not just eating. She's receiving a biological signal that spring has arrived, that abundance is real, and that her body should respond accordingly. Sprouting transforms grain at a nutritional level just as dramatically as fermentation does, but through a completely different mechanism. When a seed sprouts, it switches from dormancy into active growth mode. Enzymes that were inactive come online. Stored starches begin converting to simpler, more digestible sugars. Vitamin C, which doesn't exist in dry grain at all, appears. Vitamin E increases. Carotenoids, the compounds responsible for the deep orange color of a truly healthy yolk, become significantly more concentrated. The protein profile shifts to include more of the amino acids that are directly relevant to egg production. Everything about the sprouted grain is more alive and more accessible to the bird's metabolism than the dry grain it came from. And here's the thing about combining both techniques. Fermented feed and sprouted grain work through different biological pathways, but they deliver the same core message to the hen's body. Conditions are favorable. Resources are abundant. It is time to produce. Running both simultaneously, even at small volumes, a modest ferment crock and a single sprouting tray creates a feeding environment that speaks directly to the hen's deepest instincts. You are not fighting her biology. You are working with it. Here's what the contrast looks like in practice. If you rely solely on dry commercial feed and wait for favorable conditions, you are at the mercy of daylight hours, temperature swings, and everything else the season decides to throw at you. Your production curve will be decent in spring, peak in early summer, begin dropping in late summer as days shorten, and fall off noticeably or completely through the colder months. That is the normal experience for most small flock keepers today. They accept it as the natural rhythm of keeping chickens. But when you feed fermented and sprouted grain consistently, you are actively overriding those seasonal cues at the gut level. The hen's biological calendar does not run on what month the almanac says. It runs on what signals her digestive system and metabolic processes are receiving. When those signals say abundance, every single day, regardless of what the thermometer reads, her laying mechanism responds. Keepers who make this switch consistently report a meaningful change within 2 to 4 weeks. Hens that had gone quiet in fall start laying again. Pullets that were slow to come in begin producing on schedule. The winter slump that felt inevitable turns out not to be inevitable at all. And none of it requires electricity. None of it requires a supplement. None of it requires a veterinarian or a new piece of equipment. Now, I know exactly what some of you are already thinking. You're thinking this sounds like extra work. You've got a full life, a job, maybe kids, and the chickens are supposed to be a manageable part of the homestead, not another project demanding your time. Adding a ferment routine, maintaining a sprouting tray, you're thinking that's 10 minutes you don't always have. So, let me ask you something honestly. What does it cost you when production drops for 2 months? Every day your hens aren't laying as an egg, you're not eating, not selling, not giving away. If you sell eggs even casually at a farmer's market or to neighbors, a 2-month slump is real money that didn't come in. If you keep hens for the household, it means buying eggs from a grocery store that were laid by birds living in conditions you'd never choose for your own animals. And if you're like most people who got into small-scale chicken keeping, you started partly because you wanted to be less dependent on that supply chain. 10 minutes a day to prepare living food for your flock is not a burden. It is the whole point of doing this. It's stewardship. It's what separates keeping animals from actually farming. The men and women who built this country from homesteads and small farms didn't wait for a corporation to solve their production problems. They observed carefully, they worked with what they had, and they passed down what proved itself over time. That's what we're doing here at the old Poultryman. Not nostalgia for its own sake, not a rejection of everything modern, but a serious practical respect for the knowledge that proved itself across generations before anyone was trying to sell it to you in a bag. Start small if you need to. A single jar of fermenting grain on the counter, a shallow tray of sprouting wheat on a shelf in the barn. Run it for 3 weeks and watch what happens to your hens. Watch how they eat. Watch the nesting boxes. Let the results speak for themselves the way they spoke. For every farmer who used this method for the better part of a century, the knowledge was always there. It just needed someone to remember it. Stay patient with your flock. Respect the land you're working. And keep building the kind of practice that doesn't need to be rescued by a supplement company. That's the old way. That's the right way. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.